Greetings, dear ones. I am your host and the creator of the Treasures You podcast. Realizing that consciousness is emerging, its infrastructure network of illusion. We are the architects spiraling in our own legacy throughout the infinity, bearing witness, reflecting, and visualizing this unadulterated existence into a manifested reality. Life is infinite, and so are you. And this is the treasure is you. Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone is having a great day today, enjoying this present moment. And as you can see, I have a guest today on the Treasures You podcast. His name is Rich Lewis, and he is a author, a speaker, and a coach who focuses on centering prayer as a means of transformation. He teaches centering prayer in both his local and virtual community and offers one-on-one coaching. Rich's newest book is titled Sitting with God, A Journey to Your True Self Through Centering Prayer. Rich has been a daily practitioner of centering prayer since June 1st, 2014. Centering prayer has been so life-giving and life-changing that he feels compelled to share his journey with others who wish to learn more. So I welcome you to the Treasure is You podcast, Rich Lewis. Do you have anything you would like to share with the viewers right now?
Well, no, thanks for having me on. Hopefully our conversation will be helpful for your community, and where we'll just talk about what sitting with God, as my book defines it, which is kind of wordless prayer. There's many different ways to pray, but we'll be talking about sitting with God, and maybe I think of it as a reverse prayer where I'm quiet and God is praying within me. So no, I just look forward to sharing more about central prayer and how it's kind of healed and transformed me, and I think can do the same for others in case it's a practice that resonates with them.
Yes, I agree. But first, before we start, I just wanted to share with you and the viewers that I read your book, and it is, I would describe it nourishing for the soul. It's nourishment for the soul. So for people who are seeking to know their true self, this book will most definitely help you. It's setting you in the right direction. So I started to read your book and I could not put it down. And my divine higher self told me to pace myself so I can digest every word. And that's exactly what I did. So I took my time so I can listen. And it really helped me. I was going through an issue in my life and I wasn't able to resolve it. It would not leave my thoughts. But after reading your book, it just dissolved that issue I was having. And I felt at peace. I did not want to put the book down. So, definitely, this book is a great book to help anyone seeking to know their true self. So, thank you for writing the book.
Oh, thanks. Glad it helped you, and the practice itself just continues to help me. That's why I return to my daily centering prayer sits.
Exactly. So, my next question I want to ask you, Rich, is how did this book come about? Did anybody suggest it, or how did it come about?
It came about Amos Smith. So actually, I had discovered centering prayer back in late 2013, cruising Amazon looking for a book to read. And I came across his book called Healing the Divide, Recovering Christianity's Mystic Roots. And as I began reading the book, or I got the Kindle version, he talked about a practice called centering prayer that he had been doing for, I think, at least 20 years up until that point.
Mm,
So that immediately piqued my interest because I was
right.
looking for a practice of silence and sitting with God. I just didn't know what it was and what it looked like. So I discovered centering prayer in his book,
Okay.
began trying it for myself, and reached out to him as well
Mhm.
via email on his website, and we began a back and forth dialogue. And I began working with him on his website initially, but it was Amos who encouraged me to write a book. We had a lot
Right.
of back and forth dialogue, and I actually, before I had my website, I had a weekly meditation going off of his site on a different day than his was. So
Oh, okay.
he just saw how much it meant to be, and he thought you have something to say, and that people would probably want to hear, and he actually nudged me to write a book. So it was Amos who
Yeah.
encouraged me, I guess, in early 2014 that I really need to
Mm.
write a book.
Right, right. And it's a good thing he did because look how this book now has probably transformed your life, right? And you have probably met a lot of people, helped a lot of people through writing this book.
No,
Right?
exactly. It's been an amazing, and even the writing the book was a wonderful spiritual journey, because some of the chapters, most of the chapters, I didn't know what, I had an idea of what each chapter would be about, but I would just sit down and write what, and it was a wonderful spiritual journey, just writing each chapter. Um,
Right.
so just the process of writing the book was a terrific spiritual journey, and kind of going within and learning more about myself and what do I want to share with people in this book.
Yes, yes. I can tell that. I mean, just for me reading it, as I said, it just I felt at peace and it helped me to resolve uh, a couple of issues that I was having with, in my daily life. And that is what happens in life when we do run across things in our lives. If we can find a book or someone to help us guide us and get us through whatever it is, and that is what your book did for me. So yeah, if I continue doing it, matter of fact, I am going to add this to my life now because yeah, it has totally transformed me and I feel like made me better. And that's what I'm all about is to be better every day, learning more. So again, thank you. I'm going to probably be thanking you through this whole podcast, but that's okay.
No,
So,
and I think that I found it through Amos Smith's book. So no,
right.
we all
But
come
see how
across
that works.
different
But
people
see
in our
how that
lives.
works. Yes. So that is how God works. He works through us and we get the message out. And while we're doing that, we're helping the world. So, yes, absolutely. This book is just a treasure. How you like that, huh? It is. I just want to share with you in chapter 2 a quote from Thomas Keaton. And his quote is God just is without any limitation. And the way to connect to this isness is to just be two. Now, that right there is everything. But can you elaborate? Some people may not understand what that means. That quote, the isness, and just to be, just to be. A lot of people don't know what just to be is. They really don't.
Right. And it's similar to if you're just, even if you're sitting with a friend or a special person, or if you're
Mm-hmm.
married or a spouse, sometimes you don't need to talk. You just like being with each other. So you might be taking a walk and nobody's talking, or you might be sitting on a porch or sitting somewhere and you're just together. Or even
Right,
going out, or you go to the movies. I know you're watching a movie, but you're with people, but you
right,
just want to be with that person, and you miss when you're not with that person. It's
right,
similar, where we can have verbal prayer, and I'm not telling people to stop verbal prayer, because I
right,
do. I practice verbal prayer too, but this is just
right,
a different way to pray, where you're just being with that person. In this case, it's God. So sit
right.
So sitting with God, the book, and this type of prayer is just being with God, being with that special person, where you don't need words, you just spend time with each other. And then often what you realize over time is that God is speaking to you, but really at a
Mhm.
deeper level within you. God
Right.
is praying within you what you need when you spend this time with God. And that's, it's unique for each person. So it might be, you might need some inner peace or calm, or you might need a nudge, get a nudge to do something to get out of your comfort zone. So
Yeah.
it's, God is kind of giving you what you need when you spend this time just with God. That might help a little bit in terms of what is being with God. It's similar to just being with a friend, or someone special in your life, where
Mhm.
you just like spending time with the person, and you don't always need to be talking.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I know so many people that you can be with them, and close people to me, they want to continue talking, and I'm just, I'm enjoying being with them. Like you said, you're enjoying being in the moment with that person. They're not used to being, they're used to talking and expressing. They think they have to have a conversation, and no, you really don't have to do that. And I have experienced that many times with people. And yes, just being with somebody. So thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people are unaware of being. They think you have to be talking all the time, and you do not have to be talking. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to go through next on chapter 2. You have the steps of centering prayer. And I think that is on page 48. And it's very simple. The first step is show up. I know that's very simple. Just show up, right? But some people might say, what do you mean show up? You have to just be willing to sit down and be silent. Just be there, right? So a lot of people, it's because this is so simple, sometimes it can go over a person's head. It's so simple because they think it's, you got to do something so grand. And no, it's not that. You just show up, as you said. That's the first step. And then the second step is to let go. Again, a lot of people may not know what let go means until they actually show up, right? They sit down and they show up, then they have to let go. Just be there and let all those thoughts fade away. Would you agree? So I think the last step, well, you got 3 steps. The last one is open your heart. Most definitely open your heart. A lot of people, again, don't know what opening your heart is. A lot of people are lost and confused about the heart in general. So these 3 simple steps, though, will get them on that path if they just show up. And what is the second one? Let go and open your heart. What else could you add to that? Even though I know it's very simple. And just think about people who are new at sitting down and sitting in stillness, because that's very hard to do in the beginning for people. Can you give them any recommendations or encouragement in these 3 steps of, showing up and opening your heart?
Sure. Can I quickly describe how you do centering prayer? Because
Yes,
and I was even more dumbing it down when I said show up. We let go of us, and then we
yes,
really are just opening up our heart to God, and that's essentially what centering prayer is. This is a practice where it is meditation, but it's also opening to God, and we're
right.
opening to the presence and actions of God within. So I'll quickly describe how you do centering prayer,
Okay.
because it is, centering prayer is about showing up. It is
Mhm.
about letting go of our thoughts and engaged thoughts, and then really just opening our hearts to God during this special time. So how you do centering prayer, and centering prayer, uh, just a quick historical. It's been around since for about 50 years. It was created in
Mhm.
the early 1970s by
Mm.
three Trappist monks. So three
Oh,
Catholic priests saw other forms of in the secular world forms of meditation going on, and they wanted something for the Christian world. And
right.
one of them, Father William Meninger, was reading a book called The Cloud of Unknowing, which is a 14th century kind of an old classic book. And as he read the book, kind of a method of wordless silent prayer seemed to pop out of the pages as he was reading it. So he
Oh.
began talking amongst the two other priests, and then they began sharing it with not only clergy and other priests, but they began sharing it with the public. And then they even created one of them, Thomas Keating, who you mentioned in the quote earlier,
Mhm.
created the Contemplative Outreach Organization in 1984, which is really the
Okay.
main centering prayer organization. So
Oh, okay.
the website is contemplativeoutreach.org, and there's a ton of centering prayer resources on it. So
Mm.
that's kind of a quick history. It's been around for 50 years. Now
Okay.
the idea of sitting in silence is certainly not a 50-year-old practice. That's
Right.
been around for thousands of years,
Right,
and
right.
you can see it in the Bible, and you can even read of Jesus going off to be alone, and we don't think he was always talking. We think he was just sitting and being with God. So the
Mhm.
idea of silent practices go back thousands of years, obviously.
Right.
And then how
Right.
you do centering prayer is you sit comfortably with your eyes closed, and then to begin your prayer time, you interiorly introduce this what we call a sacred word, usually of one or two syllables. So it could
Mhm.
be love, a color, it could be Jesus, it could be trust, faith, whatever
Right.
word you want to choose. That signifies your opening to the presence and actions of God within. And then
Mhm.
as you're sitting there, when you engage your thoughts, and what I mean by that is when you begin thinking all the things you did before your silent sit, or you begin thinking about what you're going to do when you get up from your sit and what errands you're going to do the rest of the day, you realize you're now not sitting with God in the present moment. You're sitting with you and your
Right.
thoughts. So
Right.
you reintroduce that sacred word interiorly to let go of your engaged thoughts and come back
Mhm.
to the purpose of your sit of just sitting with God. You use the sacred word when needed. So it's not used as a mantra, is just
Okay.
used when you catch yourself engaging your thoughts.
Oh, okay.
So that's how you do the practice, and you can do it. So maybe to even come back to your question, so the idea of sitting with silence can be very daunting for some people. So
Right.
you might want to start with baby steps and start with 1 to 5 minutes and slowly work yourself up to 10, 15, or even 20 minutes and
Right.
see how it goes. But the idea of sitting in silence could seem like an eternity for a beginner. So
Yes.
start with 1 to 5 minutes, and then, as I say, show up. We're letting go of our engaged thoughts and using our sacred word to come back to the present moment and to come back to God. And we're
Mhm.
really just opening our hearts to God. I think of it. I think of it as a reverse prayer. We're letting go of us, and we're letting God speak to us, kind of deep within our soul, beyond words, thoughts, and images.
Right, right. Yes, definitely. That is definitely what it is, and that is definitely what I felt when I read your book and I was going through some of the things that I was going through. So, I mean, I felt at peace and I was able to release, which is just I find amazing because that's how God is. God is amazing. I was able to release what I couldn't release when I was reading your book. So again, I'm going to always keep thanking you for that. So, okay, now I wanted to move forward on your book and talk about, let me see where I'm at. Page 58, The Door. I read something. I just want to read the first paragraph, and it says, the beloved says from the other side of the door, open the door and come in so we can experience just how one might become. Centering prayer is the door I open to come in and experience oneness with God. Now, that says it all for me. So, can you elaborate on that paragraph?
Sure. Yeah, and I guess for me, it was just a practice that really resonated with me, And there's
Mhm.
a lot of different practices where you can experience this. I was always attracted to silence. I knew there was something powerful about silence. I knew God was in the silence. I just didn't know how to deepen the silence and deepen my relationship with God. Centering prayer for me just resonated with me. So once I learned centering prayer back in 2013, it made sitting with God and sitting in the silence that much easier. So
Mhm.
for me, it's the door to God for me. It's my daily door, and I practice it one, two, sometimes three times a day. So
Mhm.
it's just the door that I continue to walk through to sit with God and to have this continuous oneness with God.
Right.
And then you take it with you too. So you're not sitting with God and then saying, I'll see you again tomorrow, God, or I'll see you again at my next sit. Kind of
Right.
this oneness with God comes with us, and God comes with us outside of our sits into our everyday life. So I think of it as I sit with God, and then I partner with God as I move through the day on
Right.
on any and all the tasks that I need to do. So it's just been a
Yeah.
terrific door for me that it reconnects me to God so that I can continue to take the presence of God with me throughout the day,
Right.
not just during my centering prayer sits. So I think some
Right.
people might separate the two where they're praying to God and they're doing their day. And I'm thinking of it as, well, yes, I am praying with God, but then God's coming with me.
Right.
And we're constantly together and co-creating, in the word.
Mhm. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, that is it. I mean, that if you have that, your day, your life will be joyful. Yes. Yes. So, absolutely, I can admire that, and I too do practices where I'm with God. I'm God is with me all day long because I make time for that. I make the space so I can connect, and I'm always connected. As I always say, we're always connected, but if you have your mind that's so busy, then you're not connected because you, like you said, they separated. I found that paragraph to be just lovely. So that's why I pointed it out and I wanted you to share. So I
Appreciate
think
it.
I have,
Great.
yes, I have, let me see, another one on the same page. Centering prayer grounds me so I can better perform in this world. Centering prayer opens my eyes. I now see the divine where I previously did not. Yes, again, I'm telling you, everything you say, I mean, it resonates with me. I just think that's beautiful that you're sharing your experiences and you're sharing how you can find your true self through this book by showing up and by adding every day this time to sit with God. So you will receive messages. Maybe you won't receive messages. Maybe you just sit still so you can have that peace enter your body, your mind, your emotions. Yes. So again, these parts that I am choosing to share with people are they resonate with me, and I just wanted to share that with everyone. And I want to go now to page 116 where it says God is presence. God is always present. It is me who forgets this. Again, you want to elaborate on that? Which I know that's very simple, but yes, for the viewers, people don't know.
No, like, and I think of it as, during my day job, I interact in the I deal with 401k accounts. I have clients, and I deal with,
Uh-huh.
and they'll call and they'll ask me questions, and I don't have, and sometimes I don't know the answers, and
Right,
it's
right,
so when I remember God is with me and together we can figure this out, it goes easier and things aren't as bad. So I always think of God as, it's me who forgets God is present when I'm living in fear, or when I don't think I can do something, or I lack confidence, is when I'm
right, right,
forgetting that God is with me and God is a constant presence with me. Centering prayer really, or there's sometimes I'll just do a centering prayer sit, and then I'll get up and resume my day, and then I'm all of a sudden able to figure out that question that eluded me, or
right,
figure out the best way to do a task when I remember that I'm not alone, and I have these tremendous inner resources of God to help me.
Right. Yes. That's great. And I'm glad you said that because my next part of your book is chapter 6, and it said, but this is God speaking, and it says, "Why do you worry? Why are you anxious? I am with you, Richard. I love you. You are not alone. I am always with you. When you do get anxious, come to me and I will give you the rest." Matthew 11:28.
Was that at like the end of one of the chapters where I talked about kind of a
Yes.
journaling practice I did? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember that. I remember I had a couple years back. I had a spiritual director. It was a wonderful nun, and
Uh-huh.
I would go to see her once a month at the where she lived at a
Oh,
retreat
okay.
at a retreat center, and she kind of taught me this practice where she could tell I was anxious over some things, so she told me to journal to God, and
Ah.
so she told me to first just unload to God,
Mhm.
journal what was on my mind and what was weighing heavily on my mind. And then she turned around and wanted me to, then she said, just write the word God and how would God respond? And
Mhm.
initially I thought, well, I have the right to even decide how God will respond. And she said, just try it. And
Right.
that was kind of one of the exercises. So I decided to put that in the book where I decided, well, what would God say to me? And I think God would say exactly that God loves me. God doesn't want me to be
Mhm.
alone. God God
Right.
God wants me to know that I can always come to him, and together we'll figure this out. And together we'll get through this.
Right, right. Absolutely. I totally agree. So yeah, I mentioned that because we all at times get anxious, and we all at times have fear creeping, just because of whatever we're doing. So if we can acknowledge that God is with us always, and he will definitely get you through whatever it is. But we have to allow God to be present within us so we can hear when God is speaking to us, because God is really always speaking to us. We just don't hear it because we're so busy with our daily lives. And that is when a lot of us do not hear. So, yeah, I found that to be interesting. That's why I pointed that out. I mean, there's a lot of things in your book that's very nurturing, as I said, and it helps to connect people with things that you don't even realize. You really don't. You could be going through your day and you could be depressed, you could be sad. And if you sit down and do a sit of centering prayer, show up and just be silent. That's another thing that you said. I don't know where it is in the book, but you said when you sit in the silence, that is when God's presence is healing you. You are being healed by sitting there, and you don't even know that you're being healed, but you are, because when you get up, depending on, I guess, how long you've been sitting, you feel better. You feel lighter. You don't have those burdens that you were carrying no more because you sat and allowed God's presence to fill you and make you lighter. And that brings joy and that brings peace and that helps you on your journey. So, I again thank you for that. I want to say right now, let me see, 168. If you can, I'm going to read this and then you can elaborate on this. It
Okay.
says this is this is 168. I don't know what chapter it is. I don't know if it's chapter 8 or chapter 9, but it says, distributive justice. God owns the world and everyone is entitled to get a fair share in it. The kingdom of God is also within. It is when we lead God centered lives as opposed to self centered lives. So that's the rest of it, of the distributive justice.
I think I just may have been at least talking about the idea that we're kind of co-creators with God and that God needs us in the world. Make sure everybody gets their fair share, and I think that's what I was referring to in there. I'd have to go back. I don't know. I wish I had my book in front of me, but no, I
Mm.
think that's what I was referring to. Is that you know we need God as much as God needs us, and that we're
Right.
kind of the hands and feet and
Mhm.
ears of God in the world, and that God needs
Mhm.
us in the world, um, making sure everybody, there's enough for everybody, and making sure everybody gets what they need. And what I mean by that is food, shelter,
Yes,
and,
yes.
and a livelihood that everybody is deserving of.
Exactly, deserving of, because that is what God is all about. He works through you, he works through everyone, and when you listen and pay attention, you will realize that. So, we are going to round it up right now, but it was most certainly a delight and a honor to have you on the Treasures You podcast, Rich Lewis, and you are spreading God's word, being able to help people live balanced, happy lives with having the presence of God within their hearts, within their lives. So I thank you for this beautiful book and continue doing what you're doing because you have helped me and I know you have helped many others. So continue. And would you like to say any last final thought? And we're going to round it up and that will be it.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And
Mhm.
yes, this type of practice will heal and transform you as you just show up, let go, and open your heart. So when it's kind of a long-term marathon with God, but if you do this type of practice, you'll notice it healing you, and you'll notice it
Yeah.
transforming you. So I would
Yeah.
just encourage people to try it, and even if it's just for 5 minutes a day,
Yeah.
try it for 30 days and see what happens, and then see if it resonates, then continue the practice, and maybe lengthen the amount of time. Feel free to visit my site, silenceteaches.com. I have a free centering prayer ebook. So if they want to
Mhm.
explore the idea of silent prayer and centering prayer, they can subscribe to my website and they'll get my free ebook. And then they
Okay.
can further explore and see if this is a practice that resonates with them, and is it a
Mhm.
practice they want to continue with. So I would
Right.
just encourage people to try it for 30 days and see what happens.
Right. Can you say that website one more time so they can catch it? Just say it again.
Sure, silenceteaches.com.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you, Rich Lewis. And I am so grateful. And I know the viewers are grateful. And hopefully, they will get your book and learn to find out about their true self. And as I always say at the end of this podcast, for everybody to remember that the treasure is you. So take care, dear ones, and have a lovely day. And namaste.